Now I want to switch over to financial reform a little bit. Michael Hirsh from Newsweek has written about that. I thought it was very interesting. Wanted to get him back on the program. Michael, welcome back to the Young Turks.
Thanks, Nick. How are you?
Great. Great pleasure to have you on. So,
thanks.
Let me ask you about this commission here. Now, some people had high hopes for it, that they were going to start to hold the bankers accountable. First, let's start with, do you think they've started in that direction?
No, I mean, I think they went in the opposite direction, as I indicated in my piece. I mean, you can't write them off. They've really just begun their investigation after, I would add, a long series of delays in getting started. They have to deliver a report by the end of the year, so, they have almost 12 months. But I do think it was exceedingly odd starting off the way they did with the Wall Street CEOs of the big banks, because they really didn't have anything on them. I mean, it was, as someone said to me, it was like calling, Richard Nixon as a witness on the first day of the Watergate hearings.
Why do you think they didn't have anything on them? Why is this process backwards?
Well, because they haven't done enough investigation. And I know that one of the commissioners, probably the most able of them all, Brooksley Born, who was kind of the heroine of the crisis because she had warned about derivatives back in 1998, behind the scenes had wanted to wait on bringing the CEOs in. She wanted to have a series of questions about, of more junior witnesses and sort of build a case, and then really fire some very pointed questions at the CEOs, and they didn't do that. Instead, they made a grab for the headlines, and the end result was not a very, very impressive hearing.
So, as you look at some of the questions that were asked, do you get a sense that they're not? Is it fair to say they're not really trying? Is that too harsh?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think Phil Angelides, the chairman of the commission, I think he really wants to make the grade with this. I mean, this is his chance to become a national figure rather than just a California treasurer, which is what he was before. He's a crony of Nancy Pelosi's, which is why he's running the commission. He doesn't have any particular qualifications to do so. I think he wants to make the grade. I just think that these are not the most competent people necessarily who are running this commission.
Well, if they wanted competent people to run the commission, my guess is that they could have found them. You can go to Bill Black.
But Nancy Pelosi doesn't operate that way. I mean, Nancy Pelosi is interested in herself and her political profile. I have to say I've seen extremely little evidence that she's interested in the greater welfare of the country. If she were, she certainly wouldn't have appointed a crony to this commission. She would have appointed someone like Brooksley Born, who is vastly more qualified to run it, and certainly would have taken on a greater profile because of the role she played before the financial crisis.
Mike, I'm afraid it goes a lot deeper than that because, I'm not sure how much Nancy Pelosi gains by having someone who's not up to the job in that position. I think the much bigger problem is that the Democrats don't necessarily want to find out the answers. If they wanted to find out the answers, they know the guys who they can appoint on that commission who'll be tough, who've done these investigations before, who know how to do them right, and they would listen to them. But I get the sense from the Republicans and Democrats that they have no interest in finding out what went wrong.
Well, certainly if you look at some of the congressional committee hearings over the past year or so since the crisis really bottomed out, it's a mixed record. I mean, there have been efforts by, say, Henry Waxman's committee to get to the bottom of Greenspan's role, others' roles. So I just know what I observe, and it was clear that what you had here was Pelosi giving, a nice plum national profile type job to a crony of hers rather than to the person who would be best qualified.
So is there hope left? Because, look, I've been very, very skeptical about how the Obama administration and the Democrats have handled financial reform. I think they've brought weak sauce and made it weaker in Congress.
I think that's basically true.
Right. And so but they do this commission, and at least this commission has power. And they could theoretically do the long game because Obama supporters say, no, he plays the long game. He's playing chess and we don't understand it. And he's going to build a case here. Now, after the first couple of days, as you report and others report, it appears that is not the direction so far that they're going. Is there hope that they could turn it around and go, wait a minute,
Sure.
Michael Hirsh was right. Let's build a case here?
Oh, of course. I mean, they have a whole investigation to do. They have other witnesses to call. There's a report to be drawn up. All I was saying is that this, first big hearing was not an auspicious sign. But, of course, there are possibilities. Look, there is a uniform view across the landscape, whether it's Paul Volcker, others on the outside, a lot of economists, even on Wall Street, but also at the IMF, elsewhere, that basically the Obama administration and the Congress have taken the line of least resistance in financial reform. They've taken a fairly minimalist approach. And there's a lot of growing criticism about that because what you have at the tail end of this, 2 years later, is a Wall Street whose structure is basically intact and pursuing some of the same practices. I mean, one of the few really productive exchanges I thought at the Commission's first day hearings was by Buxley Bourne when she pointed out that these four banks now represented about $230 trillion in new derivatives trade, over-the-counter derivatives trade, which means it's out of public sight. So you have the same practices being pursued, even in the face of all of these supposed reform efforts.
I was just talking to a couple of friends who work on Wall Street, and they said, they haven't changed a damn thing.
Well, I think that's right. I hear the same thing, and what you hear is, there's additional capital costs, and there's going to be costs on being big, and we're going to be much better suited to cleaning up the next mess. But what's going to prevent the next mess? That's what I don't see happening, and I also don't see any attempt to address the fact that Wall Street has the whip hand over the real economy. That it's Wall Street's mentality that's driving the rest of the economy. You don't see any fixes for that.
Michael, that leads us to the unfortunate central question we always come back to. And we're talking to Michael Hirsh from Newsweek. Obama knows that all the guys you mentioned, Paul Volcker, he knows Bill Black, he knows the guy you originally wrote about all the way back in the day, Joseph Stiglitz. These are some of the most renowned voices in the economic world, and they're all saying this pretty much the same thing. And Obama is apparently ignoring them and instead going with Geithner and Larry Summers, who were probably, along with Bob Rumit, among the top three most culpable Democrats for causing this mess. So then you get to the central question of, why is Obama doing that?
Well, look, I think if you look at what Obama has done across the board, he is pragmatic. He has tried to find a middle path. He certainly from the very start has tried so hard to build bipartisanship, to ask the Republicans what they think. None of that has worked. I think he has tried to do the same thing here. And my view also is that he frankly has tried to do too much. He's been distracted. I think that doing healthcare in this first year was a strategic miscalculation of huge proportions. It's almost as if he thought he had only 1 year rather than 4. With all the other things he had to do in this first year, I mean, I think it's now blown back up in his face.
Yeah, it's just I'm not convinced that he's doing too much. I'm honestly, I think maybe he's doing too little, and I think that the Massachusetts race might be a decent example of that. They're worried about if she didn't know enough about the Red Sox. Yes, that might be slightly relevant, but I think what's much more relevant is people saying, "Hey, wait a minute, all the bankers got all the money, and I got nothing."
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, obviously the loss of the Massachusetts seat has huge implications practically. I wouldn't read too much into it. From every account I've heard, it sounds as if Coakley really ran a very bad race, that she just made every mistake you could possibly make, and that had a lot to do with the negative backlash against her.
I hear you, Michael. I have my Norv Turner theory, the coach of the San Diego Chargers, which is that, if you make one mistake, hey, that could happen to anybody. 2 mistakes could happen to anybody. 3 mistakes, it's you. Okay, right. And Norv Turner makes mistake after mistake, and then it's him. And if they lost Virginia, okay, fine. They lost New Jersey, that's concerning. They lose Massachusetts. Wait a minute, now it's you.
Yeah, all right. Well, I mean, fair enough. I mean, there's no question that all you got to do is look at Obama's poll numbers. There's no question that that's a factor. But what I'm saying is this is so historic, the potential loss of Kennedy's seat, and that has a lot to do with the bad campaign she ran. But again, going back to my other point, I think that Obama has frittered away his popularity and he hasn't really focused on what he's had to do. I mean, just doing financial reform right, just getting the financial system and the economic system back in shape was the task of a whole first presidential term. I mean, it's so huge. And he kind of put it on the back burner, let Congress run it, let Congress run some of these other issues like climate change. And then healthcare came along and really just sucked all the oxygen out of the room, and of course was a little bit of a bridge too far in the public's mind because, you know, the public was already upset with all of these government interventions. So for that reason, I think it was a political miscalculation.
Right. The healthcare is a whole separate issue, but I agree with you that he is headed in the wrong direction. Let's put it that way. And this has got to be a wake-up call to him, and we'll see how he takes it. And more importantly, as regards to this topic, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the commission does next and seeing your reports on it, because if they don't get that right, then they're going to be in a world of trouble. So,
well, let's hope they listen to the critics.
Let's hope in this case that they definitely do. Michael Hirsh from Newsweek, thanks so much for joining us again. We really appreciate it.